there's a lot of money coming down, you know, from the federal government for EV infrastructure. And the county certainly wanted to take advantage of those opportunities. And one of the first things we knew that we would need is some type of infrastructure plan and how to go about doing that. So that's what this presentation is really all about. Okay. I feel somewhat spoiled in that we had a lot of support from the top down. Specifically, our County Board of Supervisors adopted a strategic plan that included the goal to reduce ozone causing emissions. This was part of their fiscal year 23 and 26 fiscal year plan. And they wanted us to use renewable technology and zero emissions technology. And one of the things they specifically mentioned, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. One of the things they specifically mentioned in their strategic plan is that the county develop some type of infrastructure plan that shows adoption for vehicles and equipment implementation for the next 3 years, and that plan be completed by December of 2023. So there's a photo of our chairman of the board, Bill Gates. And here's a photo of Joy Rich. She was the county manager. She's now retired, but she helped usher in this project. And they were specific that this plan include charging targets and vehicle conversion targets for the next 3 years and beyond that. So it's really important for us that we did get the support from the top down that says, not only will you do a plan, but you will also meet the target goals in that plan for the next 3 years. So we looked at our project team, we looked at who is going to be involved the most, and we looked at air quality, facilities management, and equipment services. Air quality, we do have some electric vehicle experience. So if you're in a city or a town or a small operation and you really want to get support for electric vehicles, start bringing the electric vehicles in. Air quality was the first, one of the first departments to bring in electric vehicles, equipment services being our second department. And people started asking questions, and that really helps move the ball forward a little bit. We also manage the state JERA program, so we do have some project management experience with electric vehicles. We've also created a GIS database that shows all the EV chargers in Maricopa County, as well as other alternative fueling stations, including our one hydrogen station. And at the end of the day, it's all about the air. So part of our project team, we have facilities management. They are a county department that is responsible for construction, remodeling, maintenance of all our buildings. They will be installing and maintaining the chargers out of this project, and they manage the few chargers that we do have. And they do have a sustainability manager on staff. His name is Chris McAbee. Some of you may know him. And then we also have equipment services department. They order and service all our fleet vehicles, and they maintain our vehicle replacement schedules that are based on mileage and maintenance cost and whatnot. And then they also help you find the correct replacement vehicles. So these three departments are the ones that make up the project team for our infrastructure plan. And at the very beginning, this project team started looking at other EV plans that were out there in the valley. We asked anything we could, how much they cost, who put them together. We pulled out what we liked, what we didn't like. We wrote a scope of work that had everything we absolutely wanted, knowing that this was probably our only chance we were going to get to ask for this. So we included everything, and we included a project schedule with key milestones and delivery dates. And we also validated our project consultant selection team by having the key players involved. An example is we did have a licensed engineer on our team, and it was an air quality permitting engineer. So it's important to just, you know, really pad your consultant selection team, so you're including the people that really end up adopting this project and are required to maintain all the vehicles and the chargers. And then, like, treat it like any other project you would if it's your own project. Get 3 or more quotes to verify cost, and that really comes in handy. Fast track where you can. I learned a lot about procurement. I thought I knew a lot to begin with, but start with your procurement office early. They typically know about options that are not, that are not typically available, or that you may not be aware of. They help you find creative solutions, and there's always the option to reduce the scope of work to prevent delays, and that's something they can help you with. I learned about co-op agreements, which is something I typically do not work on from my end as a grants program administrator, but it's basically a contract in a city or town in Maricopa County that's written in a manner that allows another city or town to use that same consultant that is under that existing contract. And when you do that, you can ask, you know, for a performance evaluation of that consultant as well as cost. And we did have someone who competed for this work through a co-op contract. And then we also had a vendor list, and I didn't know about this, but we had a couple of transportation service vendors that were already vetted by procurement services, and they had contracts with Maricopa County. They just didn't have any active purchase orders for work. But because they were already vetted, we were able to fast track them and get them under contract. And we had 2 quotes or bids for this infrastructure plan that came off of folks that were already on our vendor list, and they were ready to get paid. So that saved a tremendous amount of time just using 1 consultant off the co-op list and 2 consultants off the vendor list. So you certainly want to look for someone that has transportation or electrical experience. A lot of this work tends to be done by people that are very knowledgeable in it, and they tend to be someone on a national level. So don't be surprised if someone in your local consultant's office is working with someone from another state. Like I mentioned, involve your procurement department early. This is our procurement officer driving an electric F-150 that belongs to Air Quality. His name is Corey. He knew how important this project was to us. So every time he got a piece of information, he picked up the phone and called us or sent us an email, and it saved us a tremendous amount of time simply because we made communication a priority when we were trying to get this project out the door as fast as we did. And they can also keep you on track and keep you out of trouble, because they're often in government, there are some issues with working with potential bidders before projects are actually announced. I'm going to attempt to play a 2-minute video.
Maricopa County is taking a giant leap into the future by cutting down on vehicle emissions. Approved by the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, all appointed county departments will have developed an electric vehicle infrastructure plan by July 2023. The Maricopa County Air Quality Department will lead the review of county-owned vehicles and determine electric vehicle needs with shared infrastructure. Maricopa County can now lead by example by actively ushering county employees and residents into a brighter and cleaner future with zero emissions. The long-term financial effects of converting from gasoline-powered vehicles to electric will have a positive impact on the county's budget and air quality. With reduced pollution causing emissions, Maricopa County, our community, will be able to breathe easier. Vehicle prices are likely to equalize with conventional gasoline vehicles, as model availability increases and more electric vehicle charging stations become available. By reducing the number of emission-producing vehicles on the road, we will be taking an active role in protecting our environment. The Maricopa County Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Plan aims to increase infrastructure availability with this program. Electric vehicles provide all of us with better technology and safety, lower fuel cost, a cleaner future, and convenience. Maricopa County's appointed departments will fully implement the Maricopa County Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Plan by the year 2026. It's time to take a look ahead and make a change. The time has never been better.
Okay, great, thank you. And I need to start sharing again. Okay, so obviously the video mentioned some of the goals that the County Board of Supervisors defined in their strategic plan, which really helps us a lot. But it did energize a lot of county employees on the project. And my slides are stuck now.
Try putting your cursor on the screen, and sometimes that'll reactivate it.
Oh,
there you go.
Perfect. The consultant we hired is 1898 and Company. They're a spinoff of Burns and McDonnell. They are a local company. And we develop an outreach plan. Again, we start our outreach plan talking about the adopted goals by the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors. But the purpose of the outreach plan was to outline the project, clearly define a process for gathering information between all the different county departments, include all the deadlines. And it was basically our roadmap for the entire project. Now, we started this process last October, and we will finish in July. What happened was we started working on our scope of work before the strategic plan was formally adopted by the Board of Supervisors. So our finish line is actually moved to December, but we'll be done in July, which is great. A 41-week project, over 30 county departments. And it's important to probably highlight that unlike some smaller organizations, we do not have one fleet manager that orders their vehicles and maintains them. We have a series of 30 departments that all have a fleet liaison, and each department, with the exception of a few vehicles, manage their own vehicle replacement budgets individually and separately from all the other departments. So they have to come up with their own money for vehicles. So it's a lot to balance, but at the end of the day, we ended up evaluating over 2,000 vehicles, and we included both elected departments and non-elected. So elected would be county sheriff's office. They don't really have to participate in our project if they don't want to, but they chose to. Some of the courts chose to, and the reason being is we share parking infrastructure, we share parking garages and parking lots. And we ended up with over 15, we ended up with 15 charging sites in total. Here's a page out of our outreach plan. We wanted to kind of hit the ground running with everyone having a somewhat similar level of understanding on electric vehicles. We talked about batteries, total cost of ownership, maintenance, all that information. Again, we were trying to answer questions beforehand, certainly the standard questions. Here's a page out of our outreach plan that talks about our project data collection process, and you will receive an email on this date, and the project manager from our zero emission transportation consultant will call you. They will look at the data you've submitted, and they will give you some work to do, and then they'll have a 1-hour interview with you. And all this is geared towards calculating the amount of fuel we need to charge the vehicles that we would be driving. We did start off by conducting a fleet survey for parking, which was really informative. We found out a lot of employees do take their vehicles home at work. Some do come into the office for a couple hours a day, so there's a charging opportunity there. But it really isolates where the vehicles are being parked and for how long. We hosted a ride and drive event, and Chris McAbee was the one that came up with the idea of having it on our rooftop of our parking garage, which worked out very well. We also had vehicles downstairs to drive on the city streets. But this was something that was more expensive than what we thought, because a lot of ride and drives are done by third-party entities. So this was something that we narrowed in scope, and we worked with the consultant on that narrowed scope for the ride and drive, and we basically sponsored it ourselves, since all the people riding or driving a vehicle were in fact already a county employee that's trained on driving county vehicles. So we were able to save a lot of time and money on this, but a lot of folks did have their first EV driving experience, and they really liked it. The signage for the event was geared towards those 30+ department managers and fleet liaisons that do make the purchasing decisions for the vehicles they need to carry out their work. We also had, so that signage was specifically for them, the range, how much of these vehicles cost, what we can get now through procurement, all the information they wanted to know. We also had a charging demonstration on our roof. And then the ride and drive event, you know, everyone's excited about the EVs, they're ready for them, and it just really elevates the project. We did have a couple of managers during the ride and drive event come up to us and say, okay, we're completely sold on the total cost of ownership, we just need the chargers. So this is what our final infrastructure plan will look like. We specifically wanted something we can pick up and move the ball forward with, so to speak. So we've identified, the consultant has identified 377 level 2 chargers, those being two types, a 6.6 kilowatt hour and a 16.6 kilowatt hour. Both will charge cars and trucks, but we wanted that 16.6 just for bigger vehicles. 161 chargers, all level 2 again, to be installed at 15 sites between 2024 and 26, and then the remaining by 2030. And most of these chargers were identified based on the vehicles we were driving that were ready for replacement within the project time period of these next 6 or 7 years, if that makes sense. The consultant was also tasked with evaluating emission reduction tools. If you've put together a charging fueling infrastructure grant recently, you may be familiar with this tool, but on the bottom there, circled in red, you can see the tool is calculating the emission reductions for pollutants, air quality pollutants. So this is something that we want to move forward with and try to get something somehow integrated into our GIS database, and I'll talk about that in the next slide. But this is meant to calculate the amount of emissions and fuel you could save by converting to EV, or if you do convert, then you can use the tool to make those calculations, post those calculations on a website and have a running total, because the idea is to inspire county residents and other folks and show them the emission reductions as well as the fuel savings. So this is our GIS tool that our director worked with our atmospheric scientists to put together. It includes a ton of layers. It has all your Justice 40 layers. Again, this is something that you can use to help plan. It includes all alternative fuel sites, not just EV chargers. And again, this is something we have on our website to help you plan and hopefully get support for your project, whether that's financial support or support from your own government or governing entity. The charging and fueling infrastructure discretionary grant program by US DOT Federal Highway Administration applications were due today. We had 16 letters of support. Some of you are signed on to this phone call. Thank you very much. We are keeping track. Just kidding. This is what we're coming up with. Most folks call this the CFI grant. But we want to empower the 25 communities and Justice 40 areas that make up the county by subawarding all the grant funds we get through this grant if we are successful. And we would have community meetings. And as far as locations, we would obviously involve the public. But we have a trip reduction program. That's what TRP stands for. It's legislatively required. It's the same reason we are required to have emission inspections on the vehicles we drive. But basically, if you are a private or public entity that has 50 or more employees, you are required to have a trip reduction program to reduce ozone emissions, and you can incentivize that program. So we want to incentivize the TRP program by funding 80% of the cost of fueling infrastructure, with that city or town or private business funding the other 20%. You know, we look at vision, and this vision is taken directly from the notice of funding opportunity for this grant. And it specifically mentions workforce development, job quality, and wealth. And they're talking about not just a one-time grant opportunity to build infrastructure, but really develop the workforce and the infrastructure you need to move forward and continue to install chargers and continue with electric vehicle adoption. We do have some money in there for community engagement. And on the bottom left, I Googled equity because I wanted to make sure that was the correct word to use. And this is what Google said. So to us, that means not only where the chargers end up being, but also the process on determining how they end up where they're being. And then additional electrical tech that we sponsor. We have a lawnmower program. Again, it's mandated. And then we also manage the state DARE grant program. We are sponsored in that program by the state Department of Environmental Quality. They give us matching funds. That is a EPA program where we subaward grants to cities and towns and private businesses. If it's a private business, it is a memorandum of understanding. If it's a city or town, it's an intergovernmental agreement. And that's this instrument, the similar instrument we would use for the charging and filling infrastructure grant if we were successful in that. Other than that, that's all I had, and I'm ready to answer questions if I can.